Former Vice President Kamala Harris returning to the spotlight with a new book titled 107 Days, expected to detail her 2024 bid for the White House, oddly praising it as the shortest presidential campaign in modern history.
The number of pages in the book, way longer than her campaign. Sure. She joined Stephen Colbert to discuss her new venture while also dodging questions on the future of the Democratic Party.
I always believed that as fragile as our democracy is, our systems would be strong enough to defend our most fundamental principles. And I think right now that they're not as strong as they need to be.
Who's leading the Democratic Party? I'm just curious.
There are lots of leaders. And
there's generally a leader of the Democratic Party. You know, like, oh, that's the leader of the Democratic Party. And who comes to mind?
I think there are a lot of, I'm not going to go through names.
Fox News contributor and senior writer for the Washington Examiner, Jo Concha, joins us now. Joe, so she has the book out, 107 Days, and it came on the heels of her announcing that she's not going to be running for governor, and the reason she gave last night was because democracy is broken right now, and she wants to go on a listening tour of the country instead. And you also heard her there say that she dodged the question about who the leader of the Democratic Party is. She says she doesn't want to name names to exclude any one individual. So what stood out to you in this interview?
Well, Carly, I guess going on a listening tour would be better than going on a speaking tour, because she clearly still has trouble doing that based on just those vague answers that she gave Colbert. It's amazing how little press we saw around her announcement not running for governor in 2028. It's the former vice president, the former Democratic nominee in 2024, and it barely made a ripple. And I thought I heard last night as well that she has no plans for now for running for president in 2028. And that's drawing a sigh of relief from Democrats, probably. And Republicans are probably profoundly disappointed in that decision. But that's a smart decision on her part, because the last time Democrats nominated the same nominee in two straight elections, it was 1952, 1956, Adlai Stevenson. He lost in 52 to Dwight Eisenhower. He lost even worse to Eisenhower in 56. That would be the same result for Kamala Harris. So the bottom line is that there is no appetite for a Kamala comeback. And watching Kamala on Colbert was like watching the Hindenburg land on the Titanic, because Kamala blew through $1.5 billion in those 107 days, and she got smoked by Donald Trump. And Colbert loses $40 million a year for his network just to have a tedious late-night therapy session for Democrats, and he'll be gone soon now as well. So Kamala and Colbert, maybe that's a future podcast, Todd, with two people just whining over wine. You got to love the potential.
Carly will listen to the podcast, not because of the content, but because she listens to every single podcast.
I love a
Somehow
podcast.
She has like 400 hours in her days. It's wild. So answer this question of who's going to be the leader of the Democratic Party. Some Democrats are looking at Zohran Mamdani is the next leader of the party, a socialist who once touted benefits for illegal immigrants as one of his greatest victories. Watch.
When I think of the greatest victories in Albany this year, I think of the Excluded Workers Fund, a fund that was created for undocumented workers who are locked out of unemployment at the federal level and at the state level. And what this fund would do is provide some modicum of relief.
Joe, we can talk to the cows come home about our concern for him as the leader of the city, but the fact remains citizens who are actually allowed to vote, actual citizens of the city of New York, still support this guy overwhelmingly, despite him literally giving away their money to illegals. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and he wants to seize property and then make it into homeless shelters. And that's pretty interesting, considering that his rich family in Uganda literally owns private property. So again, you could go through, as you said, the litany of things why this person, a communist, basically should not be mayor of the biggest and most complex city in the country. And yet he is not winning overwhelmingly, but all he needs is like 33, 34%. And if there's going to be three other candidates splitting the rest of that vote, he's your next mayor. So it's just a scary prospect. And I just wish media members, when you do interview this guy, play back all these clips that we're playing and say, this is what you firmly believed. Do you still believe this now? And more importantly, and this is the big question, how are you going to pay for it? Because it doesn't seem to have a good answer around that.
So, Joe, we also want to talk to you about this. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has announced that today is officially Hulk Hogan Day in Florida because Hulk Hogan lived there. He's going to be lowering the flags at the Capitol. And you were a part of the Life of Hulk Hogan, which is now available on Fox Nation. So I'm sure you have some thoughts on this.
Oh, sure. Well, yes, he absolutely deserves his own day. This is an icon of the 80s and beyond. When you think of MAGA, think of Hulk Hogan first, a man who embraced Americana and wore it literally on himself, and just a larger-than-life figure, not just in terms of height, but in terms of charisma, and putting the WWE and the WWF at the time on the map. The Life of Hulk Hogan is available now on Fox Nation. This is wonderfully produced and put together quite quickly. It was an honor to be a part of it, guys.
I just don't think people understand, for people of our age, Joe, like, he was the star of the 80s. And I think for the young people, they don't realize what an impact he made on all of us growing up. But they can watch the special hosted by Brian Kilmeade and find that out. Joe, go out there and make it a great weekend. But not just Joe. I want all of you in America to do that.
That's right.
Former Vice President Kamala Harris, the last Democratic nominee for president, appeared with Stephen Colbert for her first extensive interview since losing the election. It comes after her announcement that she will not run for governor of California. She did leave the door open for something, say, in 2028.
I'm hearing like you don't want to be part of the fight anymore.
No, oh, absolutely not. I am always going to be part of the fight.
Okay.
That is not going to change. I am absolutely going to be part of the fight.
Yeah.
All right, CNN chief media analyst Brian Stelter is here with us now. All right, Brian, you stayed up late, you watched. What came out of this interview?
Yes, and number one, she did address her reasoning not to run for governor in California. In some ways, it reminded me of what we used to hear from Republicans like Donald Trump for many years, that the institutions are broken, the systems are broken, America is breaking down. Here is what Harris said in that same vein to Colbert.
Why is it then when we think we want to improve a system or change it, that we're always on the outside on bended knee or trying to break down the door? Shouldn't we also be inside the system? Recently, I made the decision that for now, I don't want to go back in the system. I think it's broken.
The system is broken, she said, talking about as fragile as the democracy is, our systems would be strong enough to defend our principles. And right now, she said, they're not as strong as they need to be. As you said, John, she left the door wide open for a possible run in 2028. She talked about wanting to travel the country and talk to people without being there transactionally asking for their vote for governor of California. She will be out there promoting a book in the next couple of months. Her book, 107 Days, was announced yesterday. It's already topping Amazon's bestseller charts thanks to pre-orders. So there's definitely some interest in what she has to say about last year's campaign. As for last year's campaign, Colbert set her up to say, "I told you so," saying that her claims about Trump on the campaign trail have turned out to be true this year. Of course, that was a softball question. Here's how Harris hit it out of the park.
He said he would prosecute his political enemies. He would cut Medicaid, Medicare. He would ignore court orders. He would alienate our allies. He would give massive tax cuts to the rich.
You are correct that I did predict a lot of it. But, Stephen, what I did not predict was the capitulation.
Interesting comment there from Harris. She went on to say, quote, "I think there are a lot of people who think they are riding out the storm," meaning the Trump presidency, "as an excuse to be feckless." Harris talking about capitulation, probably referring to universities and big law firms and media companies, although she didn't really elaborate in that answer. In some ways, the medium was the message. Choosing Colbert for her first interview was the message. CBS recently canceled that show due to financial pressures, but lots of Colbert fans think it was also for political reasons relating to Colbert's outspoken criticism of Trump. So Harris choosing Colbert for the first interview, certainly telling in its own way, John.
Absolutely. A lot about positioning here. And any time a politician doesn't rule something out, it's very much in. I will say that. Brian Stelter, nice to see you this morning. Thank you.
I think the obvious question everyone has, I don't know who wants to take this, is she running? We're already starting with the is he or she running type questions. Malik, you jumped. Are you with excitement? Or?
Of course she's running. And Republicans would love to run against Kamala Harris in 2028. Now, I'll say this, and a lot of people are critical of her. There is no reason that she shouldn't run.
Au contraire, President Trump was asked about Harris deciding not to run for California governor. And here's what he had to say about that.
Well, she can't speak. She can't talk. She can't do an interview. I thought it was a very strange campaign that we had. But, you know, I had two of them. I wouldn't call her a skilled politician. Would you?
Okay. I mean, but it's the idea that, like, yeah, she lost. The voters weighed in on this already. And we know she's going to have a book coming out, right?
Well, To push back on Malik's point a bit, it is a difficult 2028 presidential message to come out of the gate and say, I'm a little disillusioned with electoral politics, with bringing about change by working inside the system. I actually thought one of the most poignant moments of that interview is when she talked about how she had to convince her family when she wanted to join the DA's office. She had to convince her family that this was the right way, that the system could work if you work from the inside. And to me, it sounded like she talked about how she didn't watch cable news for months and that she feels that maybe working outside the system as a way to actually, produce change.
Hold on, one more big question. She was asked about President Biden's decline. We spoke about that earlier. Here is how she responded to that.
It's an instinct of mine to be someone who does not participate in piling on. And I was not going to pile on. And I just wasn't going to do that. And there was a lot of piling on at that time, and I wasn't going to participate in that.
Look, this is her central challenge, distancing herself from Joe Biden in some way. And what's really amazing is she's a historic figure by any metric in the cloth of Shirley Chisholm, a historic first. She's also historic in the way that Dan Quayle was, which is she will forever be associated with a presidency that a lot of the public sees as not popular and is not happy with. And running for president in 2028, she's going to have to toe that line.
I'm getting PTSD just listening. Here to react is Matt Towery. He's a great pollster, political analyst, and Dan Turrentine, former Democratic advisor and co-host of the Morning Meeting. Dan, can we start with you? Are there so many Democrats? Is there really just one Democratic leader? Did we just watch the leader on the Colbert report?
We definitely didn't see the leader on the Colbert report. I mean, we don't have a leader of our party right now. It's probably the only thing I agree with that Kamala said last night. Look, Democrats are buzzing about three things, Brian, with her reemerging. The first is, as someone close to her told me last weekend, she wants to run for president. And as the name of this new book suggests, she's going to try to lay the predicate that the reason she lost was she didn't have enough time, when most Democrats think it was probably the best thing she had going for her, due to her propensity to make mistakes. The second thing is, as you teased in the opening, when a candidate does something like this, an interview with Colbert, you want to have a soundbite that people take away. It was a word salad of nothing burgers. I guess, as you said, I love my country, I'm a public servant, and I'm tired of this. It's such a weak message. The third is, she's on a collision course with Joe Biden, because Biden's out there now trying to say, hey, I was mentally fit, my presidency was great. Is she going to agree with him as she gets out there and writes this book and agree with Hunter Biden? Or is she going to try to separate herself? Either way, it's mutually assured destruction for the party.
So Dan, before I get to you, Matt, I want you to hear this and then respond, because you kind of led us to this. Listen to Kamala.
People are asking you to separate yourself from Joe Biden. I was one of them. What's different between you and Joe Biden?
Yeah.
That must have been difficult. What was that like to navigate?
It's an instinct of mine to be someone who does not participate in piling on. And I was not going to pile on. And I just wasn't going to do that. And there was a lot of piling on at that time, and I wasn't going to participate in that.
Matt, what is she talking about? Piling on what?
Directed to me, well, I have no earthly idea. In fact, when I heard the piling on, I'm thinking about poor Dan, because Dan is such a sensible Democrat. And I've known a lot of sensible Democrats over the years. And now we're piling on because they have nothing but the AOCs and the Crockett's and the mayor of Cincinnati types. And it's just really making their party look like it's adrift. I would like to say one quick thing, though, Brian, for Republicans that they need to understand. The leader of the Democratic Party right now are the regime media and the regime pollsters. And you have a great example today in that. All the last few weeks, it's been Epstein on all of these legacy media stations talking endlessly, and it's having a little effect on the president's numbers, to be honest with you. But then you have the Bureau of Labor Statistics come out with statistics, which, by the way, is just polling, and they are incorrect the way they do it, in my opinion. And you saw the terrible flaw there. Well, now the media is going to make a huge deal out of the fact that the jobs report showed that we lost jobs, and they revised down by 250,000, I think, for May and June. All of this stuff comes in as a pileup to try to keep the Democrats going and to try to keep Donald Trump from being successful, which he is every single day. But that's the leader of the Democratic Party. Yeah. It's the media and the pollsters.
So, Dan, this soundbite I'm about to play is from your podcast. So interesting for me. Great job, because it's Joe Biden. Did the Biden team have a plan if Kamala defected? Watch.
If the Biden people decide that Kamala Harris is coming after Joe Biden, wait till you hear the Palin-esque stories about how much they tried to help her be prepared to be vice president and be in a position to run, and how much they decided not happening. She's not up to this. If the Biden people feel threatened, you will hear stories about Kamala Harris as vice president that will not make her look good. She will have a hard time defending against the stories if that dam bursts.
Dan, is Mark right? Did you hear that too? And do you think that's how it plays out? At one point, Kamala tries to separate and then she gets eviscerated?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I would never say that my colleague is not right. I think Mark is one of the most wired-in people, and he's absolutely right. I think, look, you saw it with Hunter Biden. They are going scorched earth already on any Democrat who attempts to separate, or people like Nancy Pelosi who did what they think that they had to do. So again, if you're Kamala Harris, if you thought that you didn't want to pile on, then you should not have run, right? She cleared the field when Biden resigned that day because she so badly wanted to do this. And so if what she's going to do is now give a book tour and say, I'm with Joe Biden. Joe Biden is unpopular. He was unpopular. And, you know, candidates that run 3 consecutive times or 3 times, like Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump, they are ideologically consistent. The country comes to them. If she's going to attempt to lead us into the future by arguing that Joe Biden's presidency was good and we should continue it, man, I thought we hit rock bottom. Apparently we would not have.
And Matt, real quick, can you tell me who do you think that anyone can be successful that is associated with the Biden team? Because we know about he was not mentally there for at least 2 years and you were complicit.
No, I don't think any of them can. I think it would be very difficult for them to explain that administration and also the results of that administration. It's going to go a different direction. I think it's going to go more to the left. You're going to see an AOC, Crockett, those types emerge. That's not going to be good for the Democratic Party.
And you know who'll be happy about that? The Trump team. Matt and Dan, thanks so much. Great.
Close out this Friday. Former Vice President Kamala Harris says she's decided against a run for California governor because the system is, quote, broken. She joined Stephen Colbert's Late Show last night, and while there, dodged a question about who is the leader of the Democratic Party, and said, for now, her leadership, as it's detected and detectable, will not be found in elected office.
I always believed that as fragile as our democracy is, our systems would be strong enough to defend our most fundamental principles. And I think right now that they're not as strong as they need to be. And I just don't want to, for now, I don't want to go back in the system.
Joel Payne and Leslie Sanchez join me now. Joel, as you know, political contributor. Leslie, political analyst for CBS News. Great to have you here. Happy Friday. Joel, boy, she sounded very downcast there. And the system, what do you mean? It's California. This California system is broken? What?
I think what she was saying is that the work that needs to be done is more than just one election. Also, I don't think she wants to be governor. I mean, I think it was pretty clear to me. It was pretty clear to me that the only office that maybe she sees herself potentially running for is president again. I think the critique of the system is important, though, because one lesson that Democrats, I think, have learned this cycle is you can't just uphold the existing system, the status quo. I think you have to offer a good faith critique of the system. I think this is her attempt to partially do that. I don't think it'll do all the work, but I imagine that's a little bit of what she's nodding to in that answer there.
Leslie, I want to talk to you about what I described in my open to this show as a nuclear event today. The president firing the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I want to read to you something from a gentleman named Orrin Cass, who is a supporter of the MAGA movement, very social media savvy. The president should not fire someone for delivering bad news, especially when the someone is a public servant and the news is public data, not a way to lead or govern. Also, it just makes people think the news must be really, really bad, and the news isn't bad. He goes on to say there's some underlying strengths, and the president should take the victory and not do things that so alarm the sense of independence in government data and the believability therein. How do you react to this today?
I think that a lot of conservatives have come out, surprisingly, and said, look, this is like shooting the messenger in terms of some of the data. And I saw your own report where you're talking about some of that data is messy. Since COVID, people have had a lot of questions about discrepancy.
Right, Kevin Hassett gave a perfectly legitimate academic argument. But that's not what the president said. The president was like, we need to rethink, let's reevaluate. I'm going to set up a commissioner. So no, this is political, it's manipulation, and I'm firing.
I think there's many people in this country that feel the part of the federal bureaucracy is politicized and it is weaponized, whether or not they believe that's true or not. I think
whether it's true or not, they believe it. I agree with you.
They believe it, but transparency in the system, removing politicals out of this and ensuring the integrity of it. But I do think there's alarms on both sides. I think that's the fair point. You do have conservatives coming out and saying, wait a minute, this kind of erodes the value and the independence of that economic data, which is imperative for the market.
And it's unnecessary. It's a self-inflicted wound, creating all sorts of alarm about something that even his own economic advisors this morning at the White House were saying, we don't love the data.
Major, Donald Trump is developing a reputation for, you're going to watch what I tell you to watch or else. You're going to study what I tell you to study, or else. You're going to read the statistics. You're going to follow the weather report I tell you to follow, or else. And it suggests maybe a little bit of a lack of confidence in his policies, in his remedies, in the results that he's seeing. And look, that's fine when things are going well. When things aren't going well, I think people are going to lose patience for it.
Kamala Harris is back in the spotlight, and the reactions from both sides could not be more telling. Conservatives wasted no time ridiculing her return, labeling her Colbert interview as evasive, mocking her new book, 107 Days, and painting her as a symbol of a fractured Democratic Party. But let's be real, that's not political analysis. It's pure partisan theater. Her actual message, that the system is broken and no longer protects democratic principles, is a hard truth many Americans feel, even if they're too tired or cynical to say it. But because Harris says it, she gets dragged, not debated. Inside the Democratic Party, the response is mixed. Some insiders see her as damaged goods. Others see her trying to rebrand herself as a credible voice of critique. She's attempting the impossible, creating distance from Biden without direct betrayal, calling for reform without looking disloyal. And she's doing it while navigating an unforgiving political media that is all too happy to reduce her to past gaffes or awkward moments. But this isn't about personality. It's about a party deciding whether to cling to what's safe or confront the uncomfortable. Harris is challenging the status quo not just of politics, but of her own party's failures to address the brokenness she's naming. Republicans, meanwhile, offer no solutions. They mock, they sneer, but they avoid engaging with her message because deep down, they benefit from the same dysfunctional system. If Harris were a white senator from Ohio saying these things, the headlines would be bold, authentic, new vision. But she's Harris, a woman of color, a former VP tied to a shaky administration, and the double standard is real. The media frames her critique as bitterness, not bravery. Let's stop pretending we don't see it. The truth is, Harris is trying to speak to a base that's drifting. Young voters, voters of color, progressives, they're exhausted. And unless the Democratic Party can hold space for leaders willing to say the system is failing, it risks bleeding out to apathy. So, is Harris perfect? But is she asking questions no one else in her position is willing to ask? Absolutely. And that matters. As for 2028, she hasn't declared anything, but she's clearly positioning. Whether she gains traction depends on whether Democrats are ready to hear the uncomfortable truth or keep recycling familiar narratives. Republicans want her to fail because they know she still has the ability to ignite a conversation that threatens their entire game. The real question now is for us. Is Harris the future of the Democratic Party, or is she a symbol of its unresolved tension? Can she rise from political missteps and lead a new, more honest conversation about power and progress? Drop your take in the comments. Like the video, share this if you're tired of the media circus, and subscribe because we're not here to play nice. We're here to call out the BS.